What's up, everyone? Today we're going to talk about how to ride defensively. Stay tuned.
I'll just start by saying I'm not a motorcycle riding instructor, and this is not a how to ride video. But I've been riding for quite some time now, and I have witnessed and found myself in some pretty hairy situations. And so I just thought I would share from these hairy situations what I've learned, and also just some habits that I've picked up to mitigate the risks associated with riding a motorcycle. Before going any further, I'd just like to acknowledge that accidents are something that we don't have control over, and unfortunately, I'm sure even some of you that are watching this video have lost a loved one to a motorcycle accident. The tips that I'm going to give you are not going to 100% ensure that you're not going to have an accident, but they will enhance the overall safety of your ride.
So the first tip really should be don't ride a motorcycle. But if you're anything like me, you know it's just not that easy.
And this is what has led me to making this video. Hopefully put out some tips that will be helpful to both new and experienced riders out there.
So here are some different tips for you. Tip number one, if you've driven a car, in between what's on your immediate side and what the mirror can capture, there's a space that can be unseen. Some cars these days are equipped with a blind spot warning sign built in the side view mirror. So whenever a vehicle's approaching on their side and you're within the blind spot, the light illuminates and warns them that there's someone coming on the side. But what I try to do is, if I'm on the side of a car, I always look out for the head and, if possible, the eyes of the driver in their side view mirror, because that kind of guarantees that they can see me. You know, if I can see you, you can see me. Otherwise, you can just go further down the lane and be in front of them, and then they can actually see you. Tip number two is try not to leave things for assumption. So just because someone looks like they're in their 40s or they're driving a fancy car, you can't go, this person must be really experienced.
The side mirror. Wow. What are you doing, bro? You gotta ride defensively around here.
You know, there are quite a few people out there driving cars for years, and you don't want to be the one to find out that they're unlicensed. So just be extra cautious and look out for yourself. So I try to look 2 or 3 cars ahead of me to allow myself enough time to brake when I need to. Tip number 3, this is not really a riding tip per se, but more so a safety measure, and which is having a loud pipe. People out there are not trained to look out for motorcycle riders. And if you've done any car driving training, you'll attest to the fact that even you never got shown or told to look out specifically for motorcycle riders. But everyone knows what a motorcycle sounds like. So if they hear you, they'll then be made aware of your presence. Tip number 4, cover your rear brake in slow moving or tight traffic. In my experience, slow moving is more dangerous than standstill traffic. And there are many agitated and impatient drivers in slow moving traffic that just make last minute decisions, and before you know it, they're cutting you off. So if you have your brakes covered, you'd have then prepared yourself to react in time.
Motorcycles also have a crazy amount of engine braking, and it's very tempting to just slow down by taking your hand off the accelerator and changing down the gears without really engaging your brakes until the very last minute. The problem with that is it doesn't trigger your brake lights, and so the car behind you doesn't get the warning that you're slowing down. So if you're addicted to using engine braking, I would recommend at least even just tapping your rear brake or your front brake just so your brake light illuminates and warns the driver behind you.
Tip number 5. There's nothing more dangerous than a gas tank mounted on top of a fuel igniter in the hands of an inexperienced and over-enthusiastic rider. There's no need for you to be going in corners, dragging your head on your very first ever ride. The likes of John McGuinness, Guy Martin, Casey Stoner, they all started somewhere. And even out here on the street, you know, they're not pushing it to the limit. So ride within your limits. Tip number 6. I know sometimes it's really hard to control your emotions, but you can always control the way you react. So there's no need for you to be kicking other people's cars or breaking mirrors, especially when you get cut off and things like that. And I've come to realize that quite a few people have made that their default manner of equalizing things given what's happened to them. But you know, there are many troubled people on the road out there that are facing all sorts of issues, and doing such things just gives you a quick ticket to hospital. They're in a car and you're out there on a bike, and they can, you know, as much as I don't want to say this, run you over out of frustration. They're just waiting for you to push that button. So if you can, just avoid it. Tip number 7, avoid peak hour traffic if you can. More cars, more problems. Tip number 8, allow yourself enough distance from the cars in front of you. Most bikes have a longer stopping distance than cars, so just make sure you have enough room for emergency stops. Tip number 9, which is my favorite tip. This is a bit of a gray area, and it's called lane splitting. Lane splitting is simply being able to go in between cars on a motorcycle. So if it's legal where you are, I encourage lane splitting, because not only does it save you time, but it also protects you from fender benders. I've seen countless videos of people getting hit in the back on a motorcycle while waiting at a set of lights.
Another thing worth considering when you're lane splitting or when you're about to lane split is other riders. So just be on the lookout for other motorcycle riders. Just because you see an opening doesn't mean you just go for it, because there are only 2 cars. There might be a rider behind you, and wouldn't it be embarrassing if 2 people trying to save time ended up creating a situation that just made them late even further?
And lastly, tip number 10, it's not a race, it's a journey. There's nothing wrong with riding slow. You get to enjoy the scenery and you have more time to react appropriately. I've seen a whole ladder just sitting in the middle of the freeway before. If I was going fast, you can only imagine. That could have been the end of that ladder. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you'd like to share any of your experiences, drop a comment down below. And if you have any more tips, feel free to share with the rest of us. So that pretty much wraps it up. It's your boy, Afrobiker, signing out. Peace.